All right, let's get into it. Today, we're looking at a venture capital fund with, well, a pretty unique story. It's called 16VC, and its journey is this really fascinating peek into the world of early stage investing, complete with massive ambitions and some very, very public lessons learned along the way. So let's start with the big number that gets everyone's attention, $20 million. For a brand new fund, that's not just some pocket change. That's a real statement. With 20M in the bank, 16VC has the firepower to make some serious bets on the next wave of startups. And their mission? It's just as big. They're all about backing bold founders, no matter where they are in the world. This isn't just a catchy phrase on a website. It's a whole philosophy that comes directly from its own founder's journey, which is really the key to their entire game plan. So to really get what 16VC is all about, you have to look at where it came from. This isn't some firm that was born on Wall Street. Nope, this is the story of a founder who decided to step over to the other side of the table and become a funder. See, the fund's founder, Sridhar Arunagiri, wasn't some career finance guy. He started out in the trenches, right in the middle of the pandemic, building a healthcare startup called Famwork. Fast forward a bit to 2022, he pulls together an angel investing group. And by 2025, that whole evolution is complete with the launch of the 16VC venture fund. I mean, that's an incredibly fast jump from building one company to funding many. And you can totally see that founder-first mentality in how they invest. They're playing at the earliest, most scrappiest stages. We're talking pre-seed and seed, and they're writing checks anywhere from 250 grand up to $2 million. And while they definitely have a thing for AI, SaaS, and developer tools, they call themselves sector agnostic, which just means the best idea wins no matter what industry it's in. But for 16VC, it's not just about writing a check. They're built on this idea that early-stage founders need way more than just money. They need a real support system, and so they've built programs designed to do exactly that. They've actually set up two different paths for founders. On one hand, you've got the Founder Fellowship. Think of it as a 12-week program with equity-free cash for people who are right at the very, very beginning. Then you have the Accelerator, which is a much bigger bet, $400,000 for 7% of the company on a safe note. That's basically a simple agreement for cash now that turns into company shares later on. So two really different kinds of support, all under one roof. Okay, but here's where the story takes a turn. Because, being bold doesn't mean the road is going to be easy. And early on, 16VC hit some serious bumps, challenges that became a very public test of the fund's character. It really all came down to two major issues that got a lot of public attention. First, some really questionable hiring practices that involved unpaid job trials. And second, some operational screw-ups with an attempt to expand internationally into Berlin. So the first big one happened in early 2025. They got hit with a ton of backlash online because they were asking for a 1-month unpaid trial period for job openings. Yeah. In the startup and tech world, that's a huge red flag, and the community was not quiet about calling them out. And that wasn't all. A little before that, in late 2024, there was this whole mess around their attempt to open a studio in Berlin. It all centered on international hiring and a real lack of clarity around visa support, which pretty much caused the whole thing to fall apart. So this is really the moment of truth, right? A stumble can totally sink a new company, but how you recover can define you even more. And 16VC's response is a huge part of this story. When it came to that unpaid trial mess, they didn't mess around. No corporate double talk, no vague apologies. They just came out and said it, loud and clear. No unpaid trials ever again. In a world full of careful PR statements, that kind of direct, no excuses correction really stood out. They basically learned some really tough lessons in a very public way. First, you have to be totally transparent in everything you do. Second, the buck stops with the founder. Your name is on the line. And finally, if you're hiring internationally, full and clear visa support isn't a nice to have. It's absolutely mandatory. So after weathering those early storms, the fund really found its footing. Which brings us to today. Where does 16VC stand now? Well, the bottom line is, despite those early bumps, 16VC is absolutely in the game. It's 2025, they're actively putting that $20 million fund to work, their Fellowship and Accelerator programs are up and running, and they're doing exactly what they set out to do from day one, backing those bold builders. And that whole journey, the big ambition, the public mistakes, and the very direct recovery, it really leaves you with a big question, doesn't it? In this super high-stakes world of venture capital, maybe the new way we measure a fund's character isn't just by its wins, but by how it handles its losses. Definitely someone to think about.